Hello and welcome to Minimise Debt, Maximise Cash with Top Service, where each episode we will give you tips on how to maximise your cash and minimise your debt in the construction industry. My name's Emma Reilly, Top Service CEO, Fellow of the Chartered Institute of Credit Management and current CICM Council Advisory Member representing Trade Credit. This month we'll be releasing a series of episodes taken from a joint webinar we ran with the CICM in October 2025. The webinar was entitled Managing Retentions. This episode is about trends in retention and retention in contracts. You will hear Philip King asking the questions, Simon Howell of Tarmac and Giuseppe Parla of Menzies, the insolvency practitioners, providing the answers. If you hear anything that is of value to you, please register for our newsletters on our website and we will let you know when the next webinar is. The link to register is in the show notes of this episode.
So let's look at the current trends as we see them in retentions. I'll start with Simon, if I may. What trends are you seeing? Are they more likely to be included in contracts now than they used to be? Is there any change to the length of retention period or percentages being retained? What are you seeing?
It's not a singular picture. The first thing that I would say is that and I know it's a thing that we'll be coming on to in due course, that certainly anything to do with governmental projects and similar and contracts, it is not part of that. There is a definite change and very complete change in that area. That also applies to framework contractors as well for a lot of the highways work and things like that as well. They are falling away. In that way, it's much better to be closer, as close as you can to the money. The closer you are, the less likely it's going to happen. With the tier ones, which is the next level down perhaps, it is not so important, and they are normally looking for other security, and that could be bonds or something like that instead of retention, but it still exists a fair bit within tier 2 and tier 3 markets. But it's not perhaps so onerous. To go to your point about the sort of percentages, the percentages are 5% max now, whereas it used to be pushed as far as it could be. And on certain engineering jobs, certainly, then it would be at 3% rather than 5%. So we're seeing a pretty dramatic change in that. The other norm is that it would be 24 months max, whereas 12 months is actually the norm and perhaps more likely to happen. Okay,
thank you. Government's making noises about retentions. It's late payment consultation, which closes later this month on the 23rd of October, talks about either outlawing retentions completely or getting them protected in some way. Giuseppe, how do you see this playing out, and what are you hearing from the industry that you're talking to?
So from my side, retentions, there's actually quite a good rate of recovery when you're dealing with them in an insolvency scenario. I think the removal of retentions could be a big risk to everybody, couldn't it? Because we're likely to see the quality of work probably diminish. And we're not going to be able to hold people to account. So I think that's a real risk if we do reduce it. What we're hearing is that a quantity surveyor that I spoke to recently said perhaps holding the retention on a bond, which is then adjudicated at a later stage by the quantity surveyor to see if it's hit the standard that it should have been before it's released. I think that's more of a workable approach. But yeah, I think getting rid of them entirely could be a big no-no in my eyes. It's not going to benefit anyone.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Simon, any views?
Yeah, I'd agree to a point with Giuseppe in that I think the point that I was thinking is, even if they were, if you like, outlawed, the time required to unwind them would be pretty significant for a start. So that you've got to take that into account. So this will not be an immediate thing, even if they did do that. the second thing is the government is actually leading the way in this, as I mentioned previously. And so I do think that there's a way of changing behaviours around this rather than legislating behaviours, perhaps. The other point, and this is to Giuseppe's point, in terms of recoverability of them, it's about any contractor who is having retention as part of a contract with their, in the terms of their subcontract, needs to be really on it with regard to pay less notices, disputes, all of those elements behind it right at the outset, so that we actually make the process of retentions work better. And I think that's something perhaps we can discuss as we go through.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I mean, it is an incredibly complex area, and it's unique in the sense that you don't buy a car and not pay the last 5% in case something goes wrong in the first 6 months. But in construction, I sat on the Construction Leadership Council a few years ago, and dealt with numerous disputes between contractors and subcontractors and so on. And it's a real minefield. Who's responsible at what point, where, and so on. And if you get rid of that, then you do run the risk, as Giuseppe says, of sort of that level of control goes. But equally, it can be abused, and it is on occasions, and that's probably why it's more successful. Collections are more successful in insolvency than they are on the ongoing business. Let's move on back to you, Simon, if I can. Logging and recording of retentions is key to having control of them. How best can businesses ensure retentions are indeed captured, recorded, and flagged for future collection?
I think the key here is knowing your contract for a start. So understand what, and fully understand what those are, what those criteria are right at the outset. It's not rocket science. This is about sticking to the basics. It's about making sure that you understand all that this is effectively is debt on heavily extended terms. It's nothing else, absolutely nothing else, and should be treated in the same way. So from my point of view, what I tend to see, and this is another element that I probably bring into it, which is we're talking very much around collections and how we can work this through. But myself as a credit risk professional as well, when we're assessing businesses, we would be looking at how they approach retentions. And these are the learns perhaps that I get out of that, which is have it on a separate ledger. Do not just include it in your normal ledger. So by doing that, you are making sure that it is completely, if you like, in your face the whole time. One of the things that we are trying to do within Tarmac, for example, is automated diarisation, so that when those retentions fall due, you get a reminder, or more importantly, before they fall due. So that's one of the issues. Diarises due dates, auto prompts, as we've said. But also the other element is about managing, I'm going to call them queries, disputes, whatever they might be within the contract, where monies could be withheld, because that often from the paying contractor or end client, that is the reason that you don't get paid, because they're going to make life difficult for you if they want to. Sure. And so from that point of view, you've got to be all over that side of things. And you must, the bottom line there is very much, if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. It's very simple. It's the sort of thing that, the CICM is really big on in terms of when you're going through collections and things like that.
Yeah, sure. And we shouldn't forget that for a lot of small subcontractors, the retention is equal to their profit margin. Absolutely. So that if they don't get the retention back, they don't make any money on the contract, or indeed lose money. So I've talked to loads of subbies over the years who've been on margins of 2-3%, and a retention of 5% more than wipes that out. So, what are they working for? Giuseppe, have you, in cases you've picked up, have you seen any examples of best practice in this area that you can share?
Yeah, I think exactly what Simon was saying, really. Somebody that's organised. I made a note of that separate ledger point that Simon said, because I do think that whenever we've seen instances and they separate out the retentions, it's usually somebody whose books and records are in good order. They are diarising. I think we're in a world now where we can automate diarisation, and we should be more proactive in using perhaps even AI. But those that have their books and records in good order, I think they're the ones that are showing really the best practice, and they're the ones that we tend to get better realisations from.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, Emma here again. Thank you for listening. If there are any other questions, please do contact us on LinkedIn. Just search Top Service Limited. And also do check out a video version of this podcast on our YouTube channel. Once again, search for Top Service Limited. If we don't see you online, we will see you in the next episode where we will help you to maximise your cash and minimise your debt. Bye bye from Top Service.